notification so I can follow the comments. Hi, LinkedIn. LinkedIn Universe. LinkedIn Universe. Hello, everybody on LinkedIn. LinkedIn Live. You're on the podcast live.
How do you do it?
It's up and running here, everybody. Everybody. LinkedIn Live. Here's how we do it. I'll give it a minute there. What I like to do is I hold my phone up and see who we could get on the horn here, and then I'll do my intros and all that stuff. Let's check this out.
Get, going on your broadcast. There it is.
Here we go. There we go. Now I got this right over here. I can follow comment. No, there's only one person on there. 5. We're up to 5. That is critical mass. We're up to 6 here. We're up to 6 here. Can we get up to 10? Hi, LinkedIn. Hi, Melody. Melody Huckabee. What's happening? Caller, where you're from? I love it, right? Like you could do like full radio broadcast.
We're doing Read Live, yeah. I'm going to set this up over on the side so I can actually kind of monitor what's going on.
Yeah, that's the way I do it.
It'll be delayed, yeah.
Yeah, we just lost a couple of people. Well, here we go, everybody. Well, welcome to the podcast live. It is 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in New York. I'm actually in Long Island. For those of you who are familiar with geography, I'm about 20 minutes east of JFK Airport. And I'm talking to my man, Dustin Wilshire, today from a little company called Nike. Dustin was an awesome guest of mine. Over the summer, we had some great talks about talent acquisition. But Dustin, why don't you just quickly introduce yourself to everyone listening in here?
Thanks
Brian
for the
Shulman, what's up, buddy?
Yeah, man, it's always great to connect with you, my man. Dustin, I work in TA for Nike, as you said, little athletic brand out here on the West Coast, based out of Portland, Oregon, which is where our headquarters is. West Coast is home, man. Portland's home. I'm happy to be back here for about 1.5 years now. So living the dream, man, in the Pacific Northwest with the little ones.
Yeah, it's awesome. Before we went on the air, my daughter jumped on. I was showing her the magic of LinkedIn Live. Imagine, I think about it too. Like, is this going to be the standard? Like, is everything going to be live? I mean, you should see her with the TikTok and stuff.
Yeah.
You gotta watch the cursing here on live. It's stuck.
That's a good call out there. Yeah. TikTok, I haven't got there yet. Have you got there? Have you messed with that?
I am watching in the wings.
Yeah, sure.
And I've had some pretty heated marketing debates with people around TikTok. And for me, I need to concentrate my time and effort to where my audience is. I have 2 types of audiences. I have a biz dev audience, and then I have my branding audience, right? Like my biz dev and my clients. So it's important to really focus where I am. And they're not on TikTok right now. They're really not. And my time is a finite resource, dude. Like I have to be mindful about where I'm spending my time and energy. And to create content on TikTok, you got to put some thought and process into it. Right now, all my time, is going really into the podcast. It's going on working on stuff for LinkedIn Live and actually doing real business and creating money. What do you think about that? What are your thoughts on TikToks? Joel?
TikTok, I haven't got there yet. I'm exactly the same as you. I've been paying attention. I've been monitoring. I learned about it through Gary Vee, like everybody else, I think, a while ago, to be honest. And then what's interesting is he's usually right with these kinds of things. And since then, I've been seeing it grow and grow and grow. There's a few people on LinkedIn that are certainly advocates. I don't know him, but I know you know him well, Joe. I see him talking about it quite a bit. And I see he's putting kind of a big push into it. His stuff is fun, so I like to kind of watch to see what he's up to. Those kinds of things. But from a usability and using something for fun, I think great. For someone like you, how do you make it work for you? I'm not quite sure yet.
Yeah.
For someone like me, I don't know that it does work just with regards to my normal job. But if I were to branch out into other things later, I think maybe. But kind of back to what you said, man. There's only so many things I can have my hands on at one time, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I have not set up an account. I mean, I'm familiar with it, but my question is really, is my audience really on there? The people that I want to be engaging with daily, that are making decisions, that are candidates, that are, HR folks on there. I don't think they're on there now, and I'm not sure if they're going to be on there, right? I don't think that's my audience. I don't think that's where I'm going to be. And listen, I'm a student of marketing, man. And I'd be foolish to completely ignore it because that would just be stupid. But
sure.
I am watching it, but right now, I am working on developing this podcast, which is the brand, and doing my day-to-day work. So Dustin, talk to us a little bit about what's happening in your world, in the recruitment universe. we're in this weird time where we're coming across end of the year, where literally I can't see anybody starting. You know, like you might have a couple people starting in next week, but that's it until after the new year.
Mm-hmm.
How does that affect day-to-day process for you guys this time of year?
It does. I mean, so for everybody, things are just going to slow down, right? I mean, just from the aspect of, at Nike, we do kind of a semi-shutdown the week of Christmas. So nobody's really going to be on campus. You know, a lot of what I do is so heavily based in Asia. They don't typically take as much time off. So I'm certainly online. I'll certainly be working, but things just kind of slow. So, if we've got, candidates that are in our pipeline and interested in interviewing and all those next steps, obviously we just can't proceed as quick as we'd like to.
Yeah, because people are on vacation, everyone's taking holidays, scheduling. It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah. Something I think is interesting, though, is that just real quick, I was talking to a couple candidates the other day. I'm working on a really cool role in our sustainability team. And I'm asking them, hey, from an experience perspective, I think we're probably not going to be doing a lot of interviews over the holidays. But the number one thing I keep hearing back is, no, man, I've actually got time off. I would totally interview if you guys had the availability to. So now I'm making some things happen because I, for whatever reason, didn't jump into the candidate's head, which is what you should do every time. It's actually a good time for a lot of the job seekers to be jumping on and having these conversations, right?
You hit a very important point there, like putting our candidate cap on for a minute, right? And it's tough because you're an in-house recruiter, you're an internal recruiter. For those people out there who are not sure what Dustin does, he works in-house at the company. And, ultimately your heart is with the company. You want to have the best possible people working with you. You're hiring a teammate, right? You're hiring somebody who's going to affect the bottom line at Nike, who's going to add to the fabric of that culture, and it's critical. But at the same time, you have to be mindful of the candidate. And something that I talk about all the time, and I'm kind of going to trademark this kind of thing here. As recruiters, as in-house recruiters, we are the brand ambassador. We really, truly are the first line of contact, the first point of contact of any new employee. When you're thinking about it from an employee experience perspective, and it's critical for us sometimes, as you're alluding to really put that candidate experience on. Like, hey, a lot of people have time off during the holidays, and not everyone celebrates every holiday. So maybe they have time off. Maybe they're not with their family. Maybe they're literally, just hanging out, and maybe it's a good time. And on the other side of it too, the internal hiring managers, maybe they're in the same boat where, hey, the workload's a little bit light. Things are kind of lighting up till the end of the year. So why don't you make some time to connect?
Yeah, and we're actually doing quite a bit of that, which is interesting. And it's funny, I've been doing this for so long. I didn't, for some reason, at the onset, I'm kicking a few of these roles off and learning people's schedules and what aligns and whatnot. And it was kind of like an aha moment of course, this actually could be a pretty good time to do some of this stuff. So, I mean, I'll be busy over the next little bit. I'm home for the holidays. We're not going anywhere. And then at the very beginning of January, I'm going to take a business trip out to Asia to meet with my team out there. So really for me right now, it's about wrapping up the end of the calendar year, which is a bit confusing because, as you mentioned, almost everybody else is aligned from a fiscal year perspective. Nike is not. Our fiscal year ends May 31st. So I'm still, I'm wrapping up a Q2 kind of a thing right now, right? Or we just did. Also, I'm always jumping in and out of fiscal calendars and regular calendars and all these kinds of things. I'm jumping in, in Asia and here in the US. So my brain just kind of lives in a lot of different spaces at once.
What are some of the hot jobs at Nike right now?
Some of the stuff that I'm working on that's pretty cool. I referenced a role within Nike Sustainability.
Why don't we pause there for a little bit?
Sure.
And I think it's good here for anyone who's not catch it. A little plug here. I'm going to link in a little bit to my podcast with Dustin. I think it's in the promo link. But what type of roles do you recruit for at Nike?
Sure. So what I do at Nike, and my role's changed a little bit since last time we spoke, actually. My role now at Nike over the past, let's say, 3 or 4 months or so, is I lead globally talent acquisition for global sourcing, manufacturing, procurement, and our sustainability business. And so I do that from our headquarters here. I've got a small team here at headquarters that I work with. Here, my team is bigger out in Asia Pacific, so in Singapore and Vietnam, because that's a lot of where we do our manufacturing, right? And a lot of sourcing materials and those types of things as well. So I lead that global function with a small team here, but I've got more folks on the team, out there. What gets a little confusing is, distinctions between our headquarters and our geographies and our lines of business and who's responsible. Nike is very matrixed. So there's a lot of dotted line kind of reportings going on. And so out there, my team is also responsible for a pretty big role of product creation, recruiting as well. So I'm living in a lot of different systems and time zones and working with a lot of different stakeholders and things like that, which for me, the confusion is awesome. I kind of thrive in that environment. So
yeah, well, I mean, the good thing is you're on the West Coast. You could kind of manage some of that Asian time there. What are the types of titles of the roles that you're working on? Types of levels, type of skill set you're looking for?
So what I try to do, in prioritizing like the kind of work that I'm doing, because I don't recruit as much as I used to, right? So I don't really have as many
You're
roles on my
managing
plate at
people.
the
You're
moment.
managing a team.
It's people, it's process, it's global processes, it's global strategies. It's working with my awesome colleagues in HR out in other parts of the world, and really just hammering down on how do we navigate this matrix at Nike and who's responsible for what, and make sure we've got seats at the table with the right people. So it's just a lot of strategy work and connecting the dots and making sure the right people are looped in. I spend a lot of my time doing that. I like data and reporting and getting the right information to the right people. When it comes to the stuff that I'm recruiting on, some folks on my team, let's say, we're kind of going through the process of identifying our next round of procurement analysts. So folks that come work for Nike procurement on a rotational program, and that's really cool. We hire probably 9 or 10 of those a year.
Are these Asia based or the US based, and they go over
These
to Asia?
These are all US based. Yeah. So
they travel around the world. Let's talk about the rotation program for a little bit, because I talk to a lot of young people, and you see this in a lot of organizations, mainly like the consultancies, where they rotate people that are coming in right out of college, and they work in different parts of the company. So tell us a little bit about the Nike rotation program.
So the one that I'm most familiar with is just what we're doing within our procurement team, right? So they're going to work, and they're not going to go around the world. I mean, they're going to start here at headquarters, here in Beaverton or the Portland area, and they're going to get exposed to our world of procurement. Essentially, is what it is. We don't even within that procurement team. They're awesome to work with. They don't even expect that we're going to retain all these people. I mean, they put a lot of effort into recruiting and sourcing and the diversity funnel and doing everything the right way. And we bring a lot of people in and train them up, and they know this is a feeder into other parts of Nike. So you're going to come in and you're going to learn analytical skills. You're going to learn how Nike does procurement, and we're switching some of that up right now. I'm not an expert yet. Ryan on my team is the expert, so he's my go-to guy with all that stuff. But what's cool about them is it's not selfish. It's very much for the good of the enterprise, right? We're going to bring them in. We're only going to retain a few in procurement, probably.
Right.
They're going to go out in other parts of the business, but that's how it goes. That's how you're a team player, right?
You're giving it a taste. Sean, what's up, my man? Sean Hervdog, my fellow New York based recruiter there. I think him and I are going to be grabbing some eggs over the holidays. We're long overdue to catch up. So let me ask you a question. You probably get hit up a lot on LinkedIn. What's the best way for someone to actually make some inroads at a giant company like Nike? I mean, it's on people's top list of company to work for. People feel they apply, it just goes into the ATS black hole. What's a good approach to get on your radar or someone at your level's radar?
Definitely. Awesome topic. And I'm really passionate about this kind of stuff. As we get older and have been doing this for a while, I feel the reason why I like that kind of a question is it's really about giving back. It's really about helping people navigate confusing processes, and I think there's a lot of misconceptions about a broken process. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about how bad these ATSs are. There's just a lot of stuff. So I'm not trying to spin off into a tangent, which I totally
can we pause for 1 second? Pause for one second. I think there's ATS systems that are, I think it's an important point that I've been wanting to talk about too. I think there are ATS systems that actually screen out for certain roles, but at the end of the day, based on my experience, there's a human being there either accepting or rejecting a resume, right? Like people talk about keywords all the time, and maybe if you're in an ATS system and you're searching for a keyword, but when people are applying, and I've been there, I've been in the trenches where I'm actually accepting and rejecting resumes. It's me, it's a human being, right?
It's a human being. It's a human being. It's a human being. I've worked for two. So again, my experience is going to be limited. I worked for Adidas for 6 years, and now I've been at Nike for 1.5 years. That's my recent experience. Prior to that, it was agency, and right after that, it was engineering. So most of it's been corporate in-house. I can tell you, everywhere I've worked, and some of these are decent big names. A recruiter's eye is on that. A recruiter is looking and doing. And you know what I mean? So we use Taleo, right, at Nike. Right. And part of what Taleo does is, as you're going through the application process, there are quote unquote pre-screening types of questions that you're going to be asked. So you're going to have to go through and validate some of your experiences when it comes to that. And as a
look at that. Whoa.
So as a result of how you identify and how you change things up as you're applying, the system will include or knock you out, but it's basically on qualifications that you're self-imposing. You're saying, yes, I have this, no, I don't. And then the system is doing it. So if the system's kicked you out, you're unqualified based on what you told me. It's kind of how that works. And everybody else that comes into the system, you're not going to get automatically rejected. Someone's got to look at you and reject that, right? So It absolutely is a human touch, and everyone's afraid about automation and this and that, and what's going to happen to our jobs. And no matter what, like, recruiters need to talk. Recruiters need to talk to people. We need to set strategies. We need to harmonize. We need to bring people together. A lot of these things I haven't seen a tech aspect that can do that. So how do we just use it to help us? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And I think people have to understand that. I think they're using it as an excuse, and a lot of coaches and gurus out there how to beat the ATS. But I think it really comes down to relevance, right? Like being relevant and conscious and intentional about the jobs you apply for in your resume, and really make sure that your summary, that your first job is up to date.
Mhm.
And the other piece too is, and I highly recommend this, I don't know about you, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I cross-reference. If I find a candidate that I'm interested in that applies, I'm going to immediately cross-reference them on LinkedIn.
Right
And
away.
I like to see your LinkedIn and your resume as aligned as possible.
Absolutely. Well, so here's the thing. Yeah, absolutely. We want them to see a line because we want to know what's the real source of truth or what's kind of going on here. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, to anybody out there applying, that's a great piece of advice. I mean, these things should line up. You know what I mean? And if they don't, you can, most recruiters they're not judging you. They're just asking, okay, so what's the deal here? What were you doing here?
Right.
Those kinds of things. We're just trying to get information and then take that and pass it on and push a process.
Exactly. So let's go back to the question I so politely, rudely interrupted you on. Getting on Dustin's radar. I guess getting on any senior level talent acquisition radar at a company could be tough. Let's go back to your best practices and approach.
So I had a guy reach out to me the other day, and he was interested in a procurement job at Nike, right? And he sent me. It was an awesome example. It was super quick and to the point. You know what I did? I took his email or his whatever connection request, and I blocked out his name so that I wasn't violating anything, and I shared it on LinkedIn. And I said, hey guys,
I saw that.
Anybody looking? Here's some tips. This is what this guy did right. He's what he shared with me is, hey, look, I applied to this job number. That way I can quickly look it up, right?
Yeah, go in your system, look them up.
Open jobs at Nike, so I need to know what job number you're dealing with,
yeah.
Right?
Someone's like, hey, Dustin, I applied for a job at Nike. Like, what the?
In a retail job in Abu Dhabi, like that doesn't involve me, right? So one, he applied to the job already, which I thought was fantastic. Two, he's qualified. I can look at his profile very quickly and make that assessment. You're qualified for the job. Two, he reached out to the right person, right? He wants a procurement job at Nike. Search for a procurement recruiter at Nike. We've got product creation recruiters, design recruiters. We've got, global sourcing and manufacturing. So we've got people focused in everything. And if you're looking for a design job, all I can do is pass you along. I'm not the person you want to talk to. How found me, right? And that's the right thing to do.
He did the right thing. And how inclined are you when someone reaches out about a role that's not relevant to pass it along? How inclined are you, for real?
I often, I do as much of that as I can. If I were to do that in every instance, I wouldn't be doing my day job, and then I wouldn't be able to pay for this house that I'm living in, right? So there's only so many things you can do. Now, I am a firm believer in helping and advising and passing people along. And I'm like you, the network is important, right? And I've got a reputation for being helpful in those situations, but don't take advantage of me in that situation as well. And
push it.
So you've got to, there's a line, to walk. Now, if I can't help you immediately, I'll try to give you an avenue that's helpful or somebody you could talk to, but I can't do it in every instance, right? I'm pretty good about responding to just about every message I get. It's not going to be right away.
And that's how you build that reputation. Let's take a quick time out here and get a little bit personal. Let's play a little game called I'll show you yours if you show me mine.
Yeah.
I'll show you mine if you show me yours. So we're gonna stand up. No, we're not gonna do that. I questioned Dustin before if he had pants on, but we'll leave that to mystery. So there's some things on the wall behind you right now, right?
Oh yeah.
Tell us, pick out of those. I see 5 or 6 things on the wall there behind you. Pick out the thing that's most important to you and tell us what it means to you, where it's from. Tell us a little story about it.
So you can't see it real well, but if you go up to the top, you're going to see some albums, right? You got 3 records right there. You can't really see what's on them. They're spray painted gold. Now, this is something I'll give a little plug, and then I'm going to give some props to my wife. I am an American. My wife is a Canadian. I met her while living in Seoul, South Korea, in a dive bar, listening to some live music, and we've been together ever since. We count that first day, June 26th, as the day. That's the day we met, and that's what kicked everything off. So the first 3 years of our life we spent together as foreigners living in South Korea. And through that process, we got to do some really cool things. We met a lot of fun people. We both were actually probably the most creative we've ever been in our lives. We're both writers. So we both spent time. I was writing a blog. She was writing a blog. We both got picked up by a magazine. We an English culture magazine. So we're traveling career. We're interviewing athletes and musicians and food and doing all these fun. So part of that, I met a guy named Adam Posner, Palmeter. He is from Brooklyn, actually. Adam Posner he's amazing. He's an artist first and foremost, but he's talented. He's a gifted comic and a comedian. He's just a Renaissance man, if you ask me. I think really highly of this guy. So Adam, that's a piece of his artwork. And so my wife, Whisper, asked him, she's my girlfriend at the time, if he would custom do this for me. And part of what he does is he's really cool artwork, and he uses chopsticks. And I mean, he's a white guy from Brooklyn, and out there in Asia, he started picking up on a lot of these really cool things. You can kind of see it, right? So I'm sure you could Google him, Adam Posner, and you can see better examples of this. But what's going on up there is so if you're looking at the screen, on the left is going to be Portland, and that's my hometown. That's Rip City. That's where I come from, and that's everything. I mean, there's the P right there, right? That's who I am. That's where I come from. On the other side is Seoul. And so what he did was, the name of my blog at the time was Rip City to Seoul. I'm from here, I'm here. He did his awesome kind of artwork that he does with these chopsticks, and he's got Portland and Seoul kind of coming together, the two cityscapes right there on the album. And I just cherish that piece of art, dude. I love it. And it just reminds me of where I came from and how I met my life, and all these things. Yeah. So that's one of my prized pieces right there.
And what other albums? What's this one you got there in the back, the big one? I can't really.
So in the middle, yeah. So I'm Year of the Dragon. So I kind of collect some of that stuff on occasion. My favorite band of all time, a lot of people either shake their head or don't know the band, is Ween. And I've seen Ween, I can't tell you how many times. In fact, I'm going to Vegas for 2 nights this March to see Ween with some of the buddies. So that is a Ween concert poster I wasn't at that actual concert.
Ween's cool.
It's an original, and it's signed by the artist, and it's numbered, and
that's awesome,
and the whole thing. Yeah. So I got some Ween up there.
I love rock and roll memorabilia. Yeah. I have a signed Roger Waters' Dark Side of the Moon tour poster.
Get it? That's amazing.
Yeah, and I bought it at the concert. It was kind of funny. I'll put it this way: we were having a good time at the show, and I collected money from everybody for the tickets. I laid out the money for the tickets, and we had great floor seats at the Garden here in New York. So I had a lot of money in my pocket. I had a lot of cash on me. And during the intermission, I went out in front of the merchandise stand, and they had the signed Roger Waters poster on the wall, and I'm like,
cash.
I was like, yeah, I'll just take it. And so that's basically the story of that. But something else I wanted to share. Have you seen the trailer for the new Ghostbusters that came out yesterday?
No.
So I'm a huge Ghostbusters fan here. Let me show you a couple of things I have here. So I have my Ecto-1 Lego car that I built. I love to build Legos.
Oh, it's Lego. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is the Ecto-1 here. Sorry, I'm not really doing a good job with that. It's great. I got to get the dust off it. But what also is cool about this little set here, it comes with, you get the whole Lego. You get all of them up
blasters
in there.
And everything, the packs. Look at that. That's awesome.
I love to kind of talk about things on people's desk here, and then I also have my Gary Carter starting lineup. My favorite.
Yeah, look at that. Oh yeah, of course.
The original Gary Carter.
Awesome.
So what do you got going on for the holidays? What do you guys do? Any
We're hanging around.
Wilshire traditions?
We got everybody coming to our place basically. So now that I'm all grown up and got a few little ones and moving home from being abroad, we bought ourselves a house, the whole thing. Now it's easy because we can entertain, right? So everybody comes our way. So we do a couple of the events. We do, my mom and her husband come over. Usually on Christmas Day, and my sister will come over. My brother's got 7 kids. They're up in just north of here, up in Vancouver, Washington. So we do a get together with my dad and his wife, and my brother and all the kids. And then on Christmas Day, everybody will kind of come down here. So it's just a couple events here and there, and we try to keep it pretty mellow without getting too out of control. So how about you?
We have a question. Hold on, from my boy Sean. He's asking Dustin, who is your favorite Muppet baby?
Muppet Herbie, you got these questions. Dude. I'm trying to even think of the Muppet
Babies.
Muppet Babies is a good one. I'm trying to even think. I mean, I'm trying to think of who the Muppet Babies.
Well, you have the regular Muppets and you have the baby version.
Is that like Kermit? Like what are the? I'm trying to.
Well, baby Kermit is Kermit.
Baby Kermit.
Baby's
right.
Kermit.
Little piggy.
Yeah.
I mean, I gotta go Animal, right? Is that a Muppet?
Animal, man. Animal's great.
Sweet, right?
So let's get back to the core here. So one of the things that you're really involved in is the Portland Recruiters Network. And I'll peel back the curtain here. I've been having some conversations with your peeps about doing something here in New York around that. Why don't we fill everybody in and kind of what the purpose is and what you guys are building out in Portland with the Portland Recruiters Network?
Yeah, certainly. So the Recruiters Network, from like a nationwide kind of standpoint, is an awesome organization. Jason Buss started this. He leads TA at
MongoDB.
Yeah, man, Jason's just good. He's just good people, and he's so passionate about TA. He's been doing this for a long time, and he's just a good one, you know. And so Jason started this, I think, in Minnesota is probably where he started.
Yep.
It. And then just slowly started growing. So they had the Minnesota Recruiters Network, is what they were calling it. And essentially, what they've done is it's a way to provide learning and development and networking opportunities to recruiters, which is what we're all looking for, right? And it's kind of as opposed to going to the big conferences. And there's nothing against the big conferences. They take time away. It costs a lot of money, and you know, not everybody can afford it or take the time and travel and be away from the family or whatever it is. Not everybody can do it. I mean, I'll tell you, I've never been to one of the big ones. I'd love to go, but I have just never made it even work. You're
coming to Boston next year. You're meeting me at Talent Connect.
So the Talent Connect, I would love to do that.
Yeah,
in fact, I'm raking up so many Delta miles. Let's just plan it, and I'll get the ticket. You know, when it comes to that,
just book it, man. We'll split a room. We'll room it up there. We'll save some money.
I'd love it. It'd be fun. But on the Recruiters Network, basically what we've done is you get the same caliber speakers. We get a lot of these. You know, they're heavy hitters. They're great people, but we just bring them locally. So like with the Oregon Recruiters, I'm the president of, I guess you call it a chapter of the Recruiters Network. We've been doing it in Oregon for 4 years now, and since I've been back from Germany, I got involved, and then quickly, I'm just kind of helping lead the team, and we do it twice a year, man. So we have a fall conference and a spring conference, and you're going to miss half a day. You're not going to miss a whole day. Yeah. You're going to get 2, 3, 1, 2, or 3, valuable speakers coming in talking about sourcing and recruiting in 2020 and technology.
And you keep it focused.
Diversity. It's focused on topics that are relevant to that market. And you're going to be surrounded by peers. So in Portland, we get anywhere from 150 to 175. We push 200 on one of these events consistently. People come into our events twice a year.
That's a good turnout. Speaking of good turnout, we just cracked 50 people online right now. We got 50 people on the show here. That's a new one here for Podcast Live. I appreciate it. So now that we have some critical mass on the show, let's get into some serious stuff here. Trends that are kind of on your mind for 2020, overall recruitment trends. What's on your mind right now?
I mean, all you hear about is technology and what does it mean and what's the right one to use and how does it help me? And yes, there's a lot of that. I say just take your time and find it. Don't stress out about it. It's not worth stressing out about. It's that kind of stuff. I'm trying to think of what other trend. I mean, there's always pushes for leveraging tech. There's always pushes. I mean, to me, it all comes down to experience, and experience is not a buzzword anymore. I mean, it is what it is. Everyone's talking about it. It's this and that. But I kind of
experience thinking, experience design,
experience just candidate experience, for example, right? I mean, is it, I work for a consumer brand. So if I give you an awful experience as a candidate, are you going to want to go out and buy a pair of sneakers? Probably not. I mean, there's it weighs heavily when it comes to that. But I'm kind of looking beyond all of that. And really, I'm trying to look at, like I mentioned before, like once you've been doing this for a while, I see a lot of things that I would do differently or that I have expertise on that I can help. And I'm kind of looking at 2020 as an extension of continuing just to give back. You know what I mean? I'm doing a lot of that with the Recruiters Network and with the Oregon Recruiters and those kinds of things. And I want to take it a step further. And I'm doing a few more things about just sharing insights, sharing expertise, and kind of giving back. And part of it, I think where people like you and I can make a difference is by highlighting, we talked about before, like the quote unquote broken, process for hiring. And we all know it's confusing, but I don't think it's broken. But how does anybody know how to navigate that unless somebody helps them and teaches them? So a lot of what I'm doing is just kind of sharing some of these insights. You asked before, some of the ways to do that or whatnot. And I had mentioned that there was this guy that sent me the message and I thought it was awesome. When I shared that, I gave a couple bullet points. This is what's good about that. And this is what you should do. Dude, it's been up for like a week now. It's been shared, I think, over 60 times.
Dude, that
people looked at that and shared it.
Pause on that too.
I mean,
because we're talking about, and I've seen this a lot, when you're really providing, when you scrape away all the crap and stuff that you and I are really upset about LinkedIn, all the garbage, and I don't want to go down that spiral there. There's so much good on the platform, and so much intelligence and information sharing. And when you repost something like that, people actually see it, and there's a value to it, man. And because all right, that's what LinkedIn was built for, right? It was built for that. Going back to the roots, why this platform was created is to share information and not just people being self-serving, narcissistic, humble bragging all over it, right?
I think I even shared with you, one guy did call, and trolls and all that kind of stuff I don't care about. I'm confident in who I am and the value that I add, and it doesn't bother me, but I do find it humorous. And some guy had called me a narcissist for suggesting the proper way to introduce yourself to a recruiter. And my response to him was something funny, like, hey, if helping navigate a confusing process by giving back and teaching people how to be successful is narcissistic, then I think about it. Call me Tony Soprano. I'll happily be Tony Soprano if that's the case. You know what I mean?
Guilty as charged, right? Guilty as charged.
It is what it is. But you can overlook that stuff. And what I learned, and I do this every once in a while, and the results are not always as staggering as they were in this instance. I mean, it's been viewed like almost 300,000 times, 250, whatever. It doesn't matter. Tons of engagements, all these kinds of things. And what I like is the shares. People are sharing it. And it demonstrates that there is an appetite and a hunger
key
for
metric.
Real. Totally. And that's how like this is valuable knowledge. These are something that I take for granted. It's common sense to me. It's not going to be common sense to everybody. And why? Because I've been doing this forever. So how can I help people? You know what I mean? And that's kind of what it comes down to.
I think we have a responsibility. I mean, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. We are recruiters get a bad name because there's so many bad recruiters out there that give us good ones a bad reputation. It's as simple as that. So it's our job to really show how to do it right, how to showcase our knowledge, how to help people, and really shine a bright light on what we do. Because ultimately, we're helping twofold. We're helping people get jobs that they'll be happier at, make more money, be more successful, be better family, parents, spouse, whatever. On the flip side, we're helping organizations build the fabric of their company with people that really want to be there. And we are that middleman, middlewomen. And it's critical that we do it right. And there's a responsibility there. Let me ask you a question. I've been thinking about this a lot. To be a real estate agent in most states, you have to be licensed to sell stocks, to sell insurance. Do you think there should be some kind of regulation, some kind of test for recruitment? Is the barrier to entry too low, man? Think about what's on the line. Think about what's on the line here, right? You're talking salaries. You're talking about people's jobs, like some important information there. Like, do you think there should be some kind of test?
I would love. I would love if there was something. You know what I mean? Something. I just don't see how you do it, and the reason why is because a lot of what we do can be so different, right? Whether you're in the agency world, whether you're in the corporate world, who are you working with, and how are you doing it? There's discrepancies in laws from state to state. There's all these kinds of things. So what I love if there was some sort of thing that said, this recruiter has this recruiter is top notch. From a business development perspective, as a recruiter, if you're doing what you do, hey, look, I'm certified. I know what I'm doing. You should work with me. Those kinds of things, I think, makes a lot of sense. I don't know how you execute it. And there's a lot of naysayers out there when it comes to even mentioning this topic. You'll get poo-pooed and everybody will shut it down and this and that. So I've got some thoughts, but I think it's not in the direction you're going.
Interesting that you say that. So I just tagged on the comments a gentleman by the name of Adam Conrad. He developed a product called Great Recruiters, which is essentially going to be like the Yelp of recruitment. So you can actually review recruiters and give feedback from training perspective. I mean, listen, it could turn into a Glassdoor bashing session, but you know what, man? Like, there's some truth in some of that stuff, right? And some of that stuff.
I look at this, like what I was talking about before with this whole theory that everything's broken. You know what I mean? Like where we can add value, I think it's twofold. I think there's a couple. You were highlighting on it when you said, recruiters have a bad reputation. Absolutely. Why? Because we've done a lot of things wrong. The other reason is because there's misconceptions on what we're doing. You know what I mean? And I think that's a big piece of it. And I think we can add value to other recruiters by, like we talk about this a lot, that recruiter on recruiter bashing. When something goes wrong, cut it out. It's not helping anything. You look like a whatever by doing it. So how do we help each other? It's by sharing the knowledge that we have. It's by highlighting this is how a good process works. It's by working with others to share the knowledge and enhance. And I think there's a lot of things we can do. But honestly, if you're a recruiter and your head, because we are so busy all the time, right? And if you have your head down and you have your blinders on and all you're focused on is your to-do list, then all you're worried about is checking the box, doing this and that, and I got all this pressure, and I got to do all these things, and you never lift your head up and look at the big picture, right?
Yeah,
and if you don't lift your head up and look at that big picture, you're just mired in everything you're doing. You're not paying attention to the reputation that you're giving everybody else. You're only focused on getting that paycheck. You're only focused on, and we're all guilty of kind of doing that, but take a step back and really look at the big picture and your actions. What's the result of that? What's the reputation everybody has? And that's the space we need to get to, is by thinking at it, in that way. When it comes to the job seeker, I think how we can make a big impact is by doing what I said, sharing knowledge, removing the curtain a little bit and saying, this is what we're doing behind the scenes to be successful. This is the kind of information I need to see from you. This is what a hiring manager needs to see from you. Or these are the things 100%. You put on your resume, or these are how you answer questions truthfully. It's those kinds of things. And I think we can impact recruiters and job seekers. People like you and I can easily do that. You know what I mean? That's kind of where I see this going in 2020.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, do you think there's people out there that are taking advantage of LinkedIn and this like quote unquote coaching and guru space and putting some information out there that they either are regurgitating, that might not be firsthand, that they may not be an expert in? What are your thoughts on that? Is it dangerous?
Well, yeah, because like we're seeing examples of people just taking bad advice. Everybody follows Karpiak, right? He had something up it might have been yesterday or today, where he said he's talking to a guy or girl, whoever it was. He's going through the resume, and then he cross-checked, just like you said, LinkedIn, and noticed the person had an MBA, and it's not on their resume. So he asked them, hey, what's the deal? How come their resume, are you in process? What's kind of going on? And the person's response was, well, I was told not to put it on there because it was an online school, like University of Phoenix or something.
It's still an accredited university.
You're working full time. You're getting your MBA. You're bettering yourself.
You paid for it.
You're not putting it on your resume. So that's a perfect example. Somebody gave this person some really bad advice.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's bad.
So there's people doing it. What do you do against it? I mean, you just got to hope that when people are seeking advice, that they're thinking about the advice that they're getting, or we combat it with good advice. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I hear you, man. So let's bring this home here. Let's try something new. Let's play another little game called Two Truths and a Lie. You're going to tell me 3 statements, and I'm going to have to guess which one is the lie. Give you a minute to think about that.
Truth and a lie.
I'm going to take a water break here. I need to figure out a way to play music while this is going on. I don't think it's going to work. Yeah.
So let's do, I have been part of trying to think if I can pick 3. I've been part of a Portland Trailblazers broadcasting piece that was featured on TV, highlighting how big of a Blazer fan I am. I was featured in a travel show in South Korea, eating all kinds of crazy food and talking about how much I liked it. And I was featured on another television program in Germany that was talking about foreigners living in a foreign country.
We are going to pause for 1 second here. We're going to let everyone else catch up on that. Could you hear that background?
I don't hear.
No, I'm going to try something here. Let's does that work? Do you hear the Jeopardy music? Oh, it's a fail. No, that didn't work. All right, everyone online here. So we got 3 here. We have 1 that Dustin was in a Portland Trailblazers fan promotion. 2 that he was in a travel blog, travel TV show in Asia, right?
Korea.
And the 3rd one is he did some television programming in Germany.
Around living as a foreigner in Germany.
The lie, my friends, is the first one. He was not in a Portland Trailblazers fan commercial.
You want the answer? The lie is the last one.
Oh, I was going to go with that, and I thought maybe you were. I thought maybe you were going to be sneaky enough and try to put it in the first one.
To try to make something up for the last one.
I know. I always give people the benefit of the doubt. You prove me wrong once again. Well, awesome. Well, listen, Dustin, let's wrap it up here. LinkedIn Live is a lot of fun. It gives me an opportunity to catch up with folks like yourself. Any questions for me while you got you on there?
There's a ton of it. I mean, you asked me a lot of the questions. I'm an interviewer as well, right? So I actually was thinking ahead, trying to ask. But yeah, I'm curious to hear, like, what's your take on 2020? One, is there anything cool you got in the works that we should all know about? Because I am a huge fan of the podcast. So there's that.
Yeah.
But then just trends. What's going on? Like,
Yeah.
what do you see being important for recruiters in 2020?
So something really cool. Tomorrow, this is actually a milestone. Tomorrow, I am recording the 50th episode of the podcast.
Look at that, man. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I'm recording it live. Well, not live. I'm recording it via video with Claude Silver, Chief Heart Officer of VaynerMedia, in the VaynerMedia offices. And there might be another guest who's floating around that day tomorrow. So I'll see if I could stalk his office. And I have LinkedIn Live now, so I may just roll up on him and be like,
there you go.
boom, get in his face there. So I got some great guests coming up. I recorded with Dave Meltzer yesterday. You know who Dave is?
I know Dave Meltzer. How do I know that name?
Dave Meltzer, Sports One Marketing. His agency was the story behind Jerry Maguire years ago.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. That's not what I was thinking, but yeah.
Dave is awesome. Heather Monahan I had on. I got some really good guests coming up. I'm really stepping it up. But then I also have some guests coming up who may not be household names that I think everyone's going to be really excited to check out. So the podcast is really coming into season 2, which will be happening at episode 51 in January after I wrap up with Claude with season 1. Myself, I am starting a brand new client under the NHP Talent Group umbrella, which I will talk about after the new year. I'm really excited. It's a startup portfolio group, doing a lot of talent consulting with them. A couple of other clients coming on board, and really looking to. Oh, I have my first LinkedIn Local. Yeah, we're doing LinkedIn Local Long Beach, New York, on January 29th. Anyone who's in the Long Island, New York area that wants to come out to Long Beach, we're setting that up. It's going to be a pretty cool event. And then I'm talking to your folks too about laying some groundwork for the New York Recruiters Network potentially, which is a interesting conversation because it is a very large market here. It's saturated with events and activities. So we're really trying to determine, what that looks like. Trend wise, that's an interesting question, man. I have a guest coming on. His name is Drew Austin, and he started a company called Wade and Wendy, which is at the forefront of AI in recruiting, where they're basically using the AI in the early recruiter conversations. So taking that piece out when you're really getting stats from somebody. Do you need sponsorship? Where do you live? Where do you work? What are your skill sets and everything? With people that feel comfortable having that with a chatbot, and then that gets transcribed over to the recruiter, and it's a warmer conversation. So that's a really interesting piece as well. So we're going to get into that. And then continuing on evolving my content. I'm experimenting. Dude, yesterday I tried a slide share. It was garbage versus the first slide share I did about 6 weeks ago, which I had a slide share about 6 weeks ago that did almost 40,000 views. And I was like, wow, this is a great medium. The one yesterday bombed. So I tell people to test and learn, man. The algorithm is wacky. The algorithm, man, sometimes there's no rhyme or reason to it, dude. And I mean,
you can spend a lot of time worried about it, and sometimes things just happen.
You got to give it a shot here. So closing thoughts here, right? Let's talk about the last couple of weeks of work. What's one actionable tip? One thing that you maybe took a misstep on, something that you look back on and say, you know what, I could have done it better, and I'm going to pay it forward with giving that piece of advice.
I mean, honestly, if it's going to be something tactical, it's clean off that desk, man. Get the stuff done. Enter that new year feeling good. Enter that new year with a fresh start. You don't want to be bringing baggage over that. You come back from the holidays and starting into that stuff. So do what you can to clean it out ahead of time. For me, it does wonders. When it comes to that. In general, man, just be a good person. Let's help each other.
Love it.
It's that kind of stuff, guys. Let's be good people, everybody.
I love it. Dustin, anything we're plugging? Anything we want to promote?
No, I mean, you can find me on.
I'm selling some shoes.
You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter. Those are the two places that I'm kind of doing most of my outreach on. You see, I got an Instagram. That's just more, pictures about what my family's doing and stuff like that. I'm gonna pick your brain later because I do have some pretty lofty goals. Some of it I mentioned before in my past in writing, and I'd like to get back to that space. And so I've got some ideas around a book that I want to start working on.
Interesting.
But it's going to take a lot of research. And so what I want to talk to you about is I want to document my research, whether it's through video or whether it's through audio, whether it's capturing everything that I do, because I think that there's a potential for that itself. One, to promote what it is that I'm doing by capturing everything, but two, I can start to release some of that information in another way, whether it's in this format, whether it's through a podcast, whether it's through a video series, whatever. And so I really want to document my research process there as well. So I'm going to pick your brain a little bit later when it comes to that. And that's something I want to kick off in 2020. I don't want to set too many expectations. But,
let's give a shout out to our man Joe Gill, who is on the line.
We gave you a shout earlier, Joe.
Joe, and let's jump in here because I was going to sign off, but let's talk about this for a minute. Joe's going through his own career journey right now, and he had a situation. Let's get Dustin's advice on this, Joe, because we're live. Joe was in process at an interview, and I hopefully I don't get this wrong here. And he was working with an external recruiter, and the external recruiter didn't know that the company already made the hire, and Joe was still in the interview process and still talking to the company when they already made the hire. And I explained to Joe in the comments that some companies in this day and age where I've had this, and I'm sure you've seen it too, candidates accept an offer and it comes to the start date and they ghost on the start date. So a lot of companies, which I'm guiding now, to be a little bit more pragmatic, and we continue to interview and screen until that person actually starts. Because A, we're protecting ourselves, right? The last thing you want to do is have someone ghost and you're 2 weeks out on a job search with it being cold. And second, you're building a pipeline, right? But as long as you're transparent with people, say, hey, listen,
that's what
we have an offer out to a candidate. We have an offer out. It's your choice if you want to continue to interview. That person didn't accept yet, and keeping the lines open. What are your thoughts on that? Let's help Joe out here.
For sure. So I'll see if I'm understanding the situation. But in general, let's say you interview for a role, and afterwards you find out it was either closed or close to being closed, whatever that would be. So I would say,
you're still interviewing.
So you're still interviewing for the role. Look, until that person starts, it's not closed. You know what I mean? And so
exactly.
From the hiring manager's perspective or from the recruiter's perspective, I think the key is what you mentioned. It's all about communication. Look, I'm going to engage with you, and I want you to trust me, and I want you to come work here someday. So I'm not going to do anything that's going to tarnish that. So I'm going to let you know we're in the final phases of this job. At the same time, I'm interested in what you have to offer. Let's go ahead and keep talking about it. And then I'm probably going to let you know that if we do go this other route, it's definitely worth your while to have these talks with us now, because guess what? We're going to need another one in 6 months. And when we need that other one in 6 months, you've been through the process, and we know we're interested in hiring you. So there is some value in being proactive and going out. What I don't like is, the role's been filled and you don't know that. So you're putting all your hopes into that to only find out that it's already.
I think that's
not the way to go here. And I would be frustrated as a job seeker. But if it was just, hey, you found out or either after or during the process, either we're getting close or these kinds of things. As a job seeker, don't look at that necessarily. In the short term, sure, that's frustrating. In the long term, you just want to keep building those relationships. And an interview is the perfect way to showcase yourself, because that person's going to know somebody else that needs somebody just like you. And the key to finding the job, you want to be the one they think of. And you're not going to be the one they think of later if you don't create that now, right?
You really hit the nail on the head there. It's kind of thinking about it a little bit differently. You have an open door into an organization. Take every chance you can to go in and interview and meet people. Here's what's going to happen. I can't even tell you. In some of these big companies, I have 4 or 5 of the same role, right? Or another recruiter is working on the same role with another team, another piece of business, another account. We share information all the time. If you're an active job seeker, like
interview.
Don't burn bridges, right? But you can push back on your recruiter and say, hey, listen, man, I really would appreciate having a more open and honest line of communication. So I'm not sandbagged. I need to manage, my expectations well. All right, dude, we're going to sign off here. I want to thank you for your time. As always, I appreciate you. I appreciate our relationship. I wish you a fantastic holiday. And let me know when you want to chat about your documentation terrarium process there, man.
I'll get some more down, and then I'm coming straight to you to ask for some advice. So
awesome.
Hey, I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate you too, man. Let's keep in touch. Happy holidays. Have a good one.
Absolutely. Happy holidays to you too. Dustin Wilshire live on the podcast, and everyone listening. Remember, take your online, offline, subscribe, connect, link, follow the podcast, thepodcast.com. Go back to episode 24, I think it is. Stay tuned for some other great stuff that we're coming. I'm working on my schedule for LinkedIn Live for next week. I think we're going to have Lorena Acosta on next week. We're going to talk about what she's doing. And my buddy Jeremy Goldman from New York, we're going to talk about future-proofing yourself and a whole lot more. All right, everybody. Take care. Have a good night. We're off.